Welcome back. Last week's G7 summit leaders united in expressing their concerns about China's economic coercion and militarization of the South China Sea. Beijing has since hit back and accused G7 countries of collaborating to smear and attack. The former United States National Security Advisor John Bolton also suggested earlier this week that the US and its allies will soon be tested by a crisis in the region. He believes that China is considering a blockade around Taiwan before attempting to take over this island democracy in the next 5 years. To discuss this, I'm joined by an Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute who spent 22 of his 37 years in diplomacy in or on China, Taiwan and Hong Kong. Charles Parton OBE, welcome to GB News. We don't often talk about the origins of this problem. We kind of take it for granted that everybody knows what we're talking about. What is the origin? What is the claim that the People's Republic makes over Taiwan?
Well, in 1949, when the People's Republic was set up and the communists won the Civil War, Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists fled to Taiwan. And therever after, China has wanted to get back Taiwan, as it phrases it. In their core interest, what they define as their core interest, they define Taiwan as the core of the core. And they made it a big thing with their own people, that the Communist Party has been able to get back, as it says, all the territories that China lost. But Taiwan, of course, is the one that they haven't. It's, in historical terms, a specious claim, but that doesn't mean that the party doesn't put it out. And most Chinese believe it.
Yes, I mean, I have noticed in conversation with Chinese friends, Chinese people, that those who seem entirely rational for most of the conversation suddenly become extraordinarily excitable on this subject. So there's no doubt at all that for whatever reason, China and Chinese people feel very, very strongly about this.
They do. But again, I mean, I think all arguments aside, don't 24 million people have the right to decide under which system they live? I mean, that was the basis on which we went to war in the Falklands. So,
and they were just 2,000 or thereabouts.
Correct.
Very good. OK, now, let's take John Bolton's analysis. John Bolton believes that there could be a blockade. His argument is that China will want to test the allies, so, a bit-by-bit approach, but also that if it takes over Taiwan, it wants to take it over without having smashed it to pieces in the first place. It wants to take over the very valuable infrastructure and the very creative people. How worried are you about a military action, including the possibility of a blockade?
Well, it depends what you mean by a blockade. If you mean a blockade that goes on until Taiwan surrenders, then I don't think that will happen, because that's the equivalent of an invasion. And in one sense, China will be blockading itself. I mean, Taiwan exports about 185 billion worth of mainly components and semiconductors, etc., to China every year. That goes into China's exports, so those would cease to be exported. That would cause immense economic dislocation within China, unemployment and unrest. And I think the whole question of invasion is also on the same lines, but on a much greater scale, because, of course, foreign trade and investment would dry up. There's no guarantee that the semiconductor industry in Taiwan would survive. In fact, I think it wouldn't, because spares and machinery certainly wouldn't be allowed in. And that would cause a cratering of the world economy, a cratering of the Chinese economy, mass unemployment in China. There isn't a social security net. There would be riots and unrest, angry, hungry people. All good things come from the Communist Party, but the obverse of that coin is that all bad things are blamed on the Communist Party. I think that's an existential threat to the regime.